Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I'm sure you are doing fine with this course and you're not facing that difficulty in it. If you remember, in our last class, we talked about parts of speech, and then we talked about, the basic clause pattern. We studied the definition of a sentence, and we talked about what three characteristics are which qualify, some group of words to be called a sentence. And to refresh your memories, those three components or those three important elements, which when they come together and we call, that a sentence were, number one complete idea, number two, subject, and number three, predicate. Subject we also call, actor, and predicate action. And we also talked about how to, begin our, sentences by different ways, or you can call that what are different types of, a subject. And you, studied, it can be noun, pronoun, it could be gerund, infinitive, compound, it could be noun clause. And then, you studied the predicate thing. And there we, talked about a predicate is a combination of, verb and verb completing elements. Of course, some verbs are complete in their nature. They don't need any more word, to convey full meanings. But there are, at the same time, certain verbs, which do need the help of some more words, to communicate full-fledged meanings. And the terminology we also discussed, that transitive verbs and intransitive verbs, And, we talked also about the verb completing elements, and there we studied, there could be object, could be complement, and then, could be object complement, and could be, what you call indirect object. So this is what actually we talked about in our previous class. But if you remember, we didn't talk about, the past, present, and future of these basic clause patterns. Also, we didn't talk about action, the completion of it. Action is complete or it's incomplete. Today, we'll talk about, past, present, and future of the same basic clause patterns, and we'll also see how to describe in our sentences whether actions are complete or they are not. In the way of their completion. This is what actually we call tenses. You see, verbs are there and they change their forms. If you remember, we also talked about 5 forms of verb. That the first was base form, let's say walk. Second was infinitive, to walk. Third was gerund, walking. Fourth was walked, past form of the verb. And third was walked again, because it's a regular verb, so past participle. Now, these 5 forms, why we are changing our verbs into forms? Why? Because we need to communicate, whether action, condition, or activity happened yesterday, today, or will happen tomorrow. This is what the role of, tenses is. Tenses, to now academically speak it, tenses convey or indicate 2 things. Number 1, please note down whether action, activity, or condition occurs in the past, present, or future. Number 1. Number 2, whether action, activity, or condition is complete or in the process of completion. Now, this is what actually the role of tenses to convey, through sentences. Probably you have read in your, previous classes, active constructions and passive constructions. And frankly speaking, this is what actually your lecture is today. We'll talk about active constructions and passive. Now, what is active and passive? See, in our last class, we talked about sentence is what? It's a combination of actor and action, these 2 things, actor as subject and action as predicate. Now, we say active constructions. We say passive constructions. Very simple thing. If your subject means actor dominates the sentence, or the importance is totally given to your subject or actor of your sentence, that construction is called active construction. I repeat, if the stress, importance, or the domination is with the subject or actor of your sentence, that is, what we call active construction. If the stress is shifted onto action of your sentence or the predicate of your sentence, if you want to give more importance to predicate or action of your sentence, then what we do actually, we use passive constructions and we call passive structures. Don't forget this one. When we talk about active voice or passive voice, difference is same one. In active voice, we highlight actor. In passive voice, we highlight, action. Very simple definition I'm giving you, just to understand and just to clear the concept so that, very quickly we come down to a point. So when we talk about simple tenses, of course you remember there are 12, tenses. When we say the word tense, please keep in mind the same two things. Number one, past, present, and future. Number two, action is complete or not complete. This is what actually the aim of these, tenses is. So active and passive, of course, both, we'll talk today in this lecture. Now, coming down to, first of all, active constructions or active structures, we have, 12 tenses. And you have studied in your, previous classes, I believe. And you probably studied, one by one with lots and lots of definitions, lots and lots of, explanations and illustrations, through examples and all. And then, read from 1 to 6 and going down to, 12th. But today, in just one go, I'll tell you, what are these 12 tenses? Well, very simply speaking, these 12 structures, 12 tenses, we can divide them into 2 columns. Now, half job is done. Divide these 12 into 2 columns. Okay, done. Why are we dividing these into 2 columns? What for? Very simple. Because 6, let's say column A and column B, 6 are A type, 6 are B type. What is A type? A type is if the action is complete. Okay? I repeat, A type is if the action of your sentence is complete. B type is if action is not complete, it's in the process of completion. It will be completed over a period of time. So, this is what actually you have 12 tenses. 2 types, complete action or incomplete action. Or you can say, in the process of, completion. Now, let's one by one discuss, these 6 and then the other 6 and also talk about, what function they perform. And obviously, there'll be, past and present thing. Before I go any, further, I would like to tell you that what verbs we're going to use in these, tenses. Very simply, verbs will be, of course, the same, forms will be using present form, past form, and, past perfect form. But we'll be using more verbs, of course. I mean, if you remember, when we talked about, the definition of verb and the types of verbs, over there you studied there are 3 types of verbs. One is lexical verb, the main verb. I mean, if there are 2 or 3 verbs working together, actual verb. For example, if I say he's swimming, now is and swim, both are verbs. Swimming is the lexical verb. Is not. Is a verb, but it's a different one. We call is as auxiliary verb. We call swimming as lexical verb. So, of course, we'll be using lexical verbs also in describing the past, present, and future, and in describing the verb completion. Number 1. Number 2, we'll be using auxiliary verbs. What are auxiliary verbs? Well, of course, the same is, am, are as present form of the verb, was and were as past form of the verb. Then you will be using, of course, has and have, had also, do and does and did also. So these auxiliary, verbs will be using. And finally, we'll be using modals also. Which model? Not all of them, only two. Which one? Will and shall for future. Clear? All right. Now, let's come down to our 6 and 6. A, I said complete verb. B, I said incomplete action, I mean to say, in the process of, completion. Now, let's talk about A. And I'll be using, one, let's say one action, and I'll play the same action, onto all these 12 are active, constructions. Let's say baking cakes, is a key, sentence to be applied onto all. Like Aroma bakes cakes every morning, for example. This is our sentence, and we'll be, applying it all onto the 12. Let's first discuss now complete verb or complete action sentences or complete action tenses. The first one, I use the verb bake. Bake is a verb, of course, it's a lexical verb. Bake or bakes. All right. This is first action, complete action. She bakes cakes every morning. This is structure number 1. Let me first, take you through all 6 and then the second 6, and then we'll come back again and I'll give you, the descriptions and definitions and their functions also. So, Aroma bakes cakes. Now this, verb or this action is complete. Second one, Aroma baked cakes yesterday. Now this baked is the past form of the verb. Third one, Aroma will bake. Now we are towards future. If I repeat, Aroma bakes means present. Aroma baked, will bake, future. Okay, let's go ahead. She has baked cakes. Has, from past to present. And she had baked cakes. From past to present in past paradigm. And the last one, she will have baked cakes. Now, in all these 6 structures, our action was complete. Bakes, baked, will bake, has baked, had baked, will have baked. In all these 6, our action is complete. It's not incomplete. All 6. And the difference is what? I'll explain you. Past, present, future, of course, but there are certain, structures which simultaneously exist onto 2, circles of past or present or future. Let's now see the category B. Over there, we again have 6 structures, and I said column B is what? Such actions which are incomplete or they are in the process of completion. For example, Aroma is baking cakes. Or let's change the name here just to differentiate. Viola is baking cakes. Now, I'm not saying Viola bakes or baked. I'm saying is baking. Means in the process of baking. It's not done yet. Wait, maybe 30 minutes more, and then you can have your all that stuff in front and enjoy yourself. So what I'm saying is, Viola is baking, not in the process of. Present is shows present. Okay, Viola was baking cakes. Again, from present we went to past, but still action is not complete. So Viola is baking cakes. Viola was baking cakes. or Viola will be baking cakes. So it is what? Is baking, was baking, will be baking, and then has been baking, and then had been baking, and then will have been baking. In all these 6 structures, action is not complete, is in the process of completion. My dear students, try to understand the difference in Aroma and Viola's actions. Aroma's actions were all complete. Bakes, baked, will bake, has baked, had baked, will have baked. And Viola's action is what? Is baking, was baking, will be baking. See, ing verb shows, progressive constructions in the process of completion. Okay? And then has been baking, had been baking, and then finally will have been baking. Now, these are 12, structures, which are, of course, active structures. Why I call them active? Because action. Stress, of course, is on action. The agent of the sentence is very much there. What we call agent? Agent is the subject of your sentence. It's, very much there. Now, let's move towards, their definitions and their functions also. Let's take up the first one. Aroma bakes cakes. Now, this Aroma bakes cake, technically speaking, this is present indefinite sentence. Aroma bakes cakes. Now, what present indefinite tense functions? It describes repetitive work, someone's routine, someone's typical day, someone's job, which he or she performs every day, someone's habit, someone's hobby. Like I teach. This is my profession. This is my job. Someone goes to school every day. So this is someone's, routine. So that is the function of present indefinite tense, or the first completed action. Aroma bakes cakes. So when we say Aroma bakes cakes, actually what we are doing is we are talking about her everyday routine, her job, her hobby, her repetitive work. Present indefinite. And we use 2 auxiliary verbs to change in the same sentence into negative or into interrogative. When I say Aroma bakes cakes, you can say Aroma does not bake cakes. Now, this does not, this does actually is an auxiliary verb, and you made the sentence negative. You changed it into negative construction. Or if you want to make it question, for example, bring this does out of the sentence, start from does, and then the regular construction, it will be a question. For example, does Aroma bake cakes? And there'll be a sign of interrogation. So this is how this present indefinite tense, or the first construction which I said, completed action construction, it describes routine, it describes habit, it describes someone's job, describes repetitive action, someone's typical day. And we use 2 auxiliaries, do and does. You might be wondering where we use do and where we use does. Very simple thing. First person, noun upper noun. Second person, noun upper noun. It will be do. And the third person, will be does. I mean, he, she, it will be, does. And plural thing, of course, will be, again, do. Let's now go down to our second active construction, which is completed action, construction. And that is what she baked. Aroma baked cakes. Now, this is not present action. If you bring again in your mind the forms of the verb, bake, to bake, baked. Now, baked is a past form. Automatically, the structure is talking about the past of your action. She baked cake perhaps yesterday. So we are talking about the past action, not today's present action, past one. She baked cakes. This is called simple past tense. Simple past actions. Like he came, he went, he studied, he talked about, he watched TV, he entered, he left. These are what? Simple past constructions. And we use one auxiliary, did. Like in present indefinite, bakes cakes, we use two auxiliary verbs, do and does. Here we use one auxiliary verb to change it into negative or interrogative, and that is did. Like how? Aroma baked cakes. Aroma did not bake cakes. Question, did Aroma bake cakes? This is how from, present, from simple past to negative past and to interrogative, past you can move. Our third active structure showing completed action. Aroma will bake cakes. Now this will, of course, shows future. Please keep in mind, this will is not an auxiliary verb. This is modal. As I told you before, we'll be using not only lexical verbs, but also auxiliary and modals. So for future structures, we use modal, will or shall. So when we say Aroma will bake cakes, this is showing future. We call it simple future or future indefinite tense, technically speaking. And here, simply you need to add not with it to change it into negative. Aroma will bake cakes, will not bake cakes. Future, same formula. Bring the word will, this modal verb, out. Start your sentence from it. The remaining pattern will be the same. Will Aroma bake cakes? So this is how, our past, present, and future, goes. Three more, completed action constructions. The use of has and have. Again, this is something interesting to discuss. Has and have. See, just bring in your mind three circles. Circle of past, circle of present, and circle of future. This has and have does not exist in one particular circle. Rather, it simultaneously exists in two circles. When we say has and have, technically speaking, this is present perfect tense, and we call it, functionally speaking, we call it present finished action. I repeat, present finished action. Now, what happens actually? Action starts in the past, ends in present. So, an action which simultaneously exists on or in two circles. Something is starting in the past. Let's say it takes 30 minutes to bake something, okay? So what happens actually? You set your clock to 30, 9:30 you start, and 10 you finish. When you started, 10 was future with respect to 9:30. Am I right? So when you step at 10, the 9:30 was past. So this thing, you have to keep in mind that has and have, why we call it present finished? Because it starts in the past and ends in present. And that's what we call, present perfect or present finished action. Now, has and have, again, is an auxiliary verb. So auxiliary verb plus lexical verb together, describing finished action, of course. Which one? Present finished action. The perfect thing. And very simple, since you're already using auxiliary thing with it, so add not, has not, or have not to convey negative meanings. bring has and have out to convey interrogative meanings. For example, Aroma has baked cakes, hasn't baked cakes, has Aroma baked cakes? So this way, from simple to negative and from negative to, interrogative, you can move. Our fifth, structure, which is again completed action structure, active construction, that is the use of had, and we call past perfect, tense. This is something to be understood by applying not just one context, rather more than one context. You have seen so far that present indefinite bakes, past baked, future will bake, okay? And very, very independent, standalone, type of structures, or has baked, also independent, standalone, structures. Meanings also, very easily, just, keeping yourself within the same context, you can understand. But had is something you understand the meanings by applying another, context. For example, if I give you a sentence, the same, Aroma had baked cakes. Now, if I add one more, clause with it, then the meanings will be rather very clear. Aroma had baked cakes when the visitors came. Aroma had baked cakes before the visitors came. Take it this way. Aroma had baked cakes before the visitors came. Now, when you apply two contexts, of course they are relevant contexts actually, meanings are rather more concrete. Okay, now what happens? What's the use of had actually? This is past perfect. It's a past perfect. It means go back to past. With has and have, I said, it's present finished action. Means something starts in the past, ends in present. Had is really a unique, construction. We use a word paradigm. Means an action which starts in the past of past, ends in the present of past. Is it confusing? I believe yes. When I say Aroma had baked cakes before the guests came, so see, the both actions, when Aroma finished her cake baking, there were no guests. The moment she finished, bell rang, she opened the door, guests were there. When Aroma finished baking cakes, that was, her present, and guests coming was future, because, when the action completed, then, the bell rang and they came, okay? Let's say 9 o'clock she finished, and 9:15 guests came. So with respect to 9:15 is the future, of course. All right. So take the same, situation and fix it in the past circle. Now, and put yourself now in and see the past and then the present. I mean, she finished baking cakes and then the guests came. This is what actually we call past of past and present of past. I mean, these tenses in the past circle, in the past paradigm. This is we call actually past perfect sentences. Aroma had baked cakes. And of course, you use the word not with to convey negative meanings and bring had out to convey interrogative meanings. The last structure, active structure, which shows completed action, we call it will have baked cakes. Now, will have baked cakes is what? This future perfect, tense. And this is something we call that when I say will have baked cakes, It's something we call, functionally speaking, this is something prediction. Will have baked cakes. Something prediction. The world will have changed by 2050. Now, this is something prediction. I mean, even this is not a logical conclusion, because there is not something happening around me based on which I can conclude. It's just my prediction. The world will have changed by 2050. Maybe not. Maybe the same pattern continues, you know. Maybe the same realities will be the same realities of 2050. Or maybe what I'm saying, you know, comes true in future. So this is sort of prediction. Will have changed. Will have baked. Again, it's a negative construction. Add not between will and have. Will not have baked. Or bring the will out. Will aroma have baked cakes. You can add time factor also with it to give the realization of, you know, prediction thing. Like by 2010 or 2015 or by tomorrow or by 10 o'clock or something like it. Now, my dear students, you have seen 6 structures which all show action completed. But things are either in past or present or future. Or there are some which, you know, exist in 2, you know, let's say, circles, past circle and present circle. Example, has and have. Now, let's move towards those structures which are also active structures, but action is not complete, rather process of completion. Maybe if it's not complete now, will be complete in 5 more minutes, but still it's in the transition. Action is still on. Wait. Its completion. For example, when I say Viola is baking cakes, action is not complete. She is still baking cakes. She is still in the process of doing it. Now, what is am, are? I've told you before, these are auxiliary verbs. Viola is baking cakes. To make its negative, apply, you know, not with it. Or bring is, am, are out of the sentence, put sign of question at the end of the sentence, and it becomes interrogative, like Viola is baking cakes. Viola is not baking cakes, or is Viola, you know, baking cakes. Now, this, functionally speaking, the use of is, am, are with the present participle, see, is, am, are, plus lexical verb in present participle form. Present participle, don't forget please, ing, you know, verb. Now, this, functionally speaking, describes present action of somebody. Like I'm teaching, you are listening, we are all studying, or you're watching TV, I'm watching TV, for example, I'm eating, I'm writing. So these are what? These are actually present actions. My present action, your present action. I'm not saying I watch TV. I'm not saying I teach. I'm not saying you listen. I'm saying I'm teaching. You are listening. So this is present action. Still we are in the process of doing it. Come down to the second one. Is, am, are is present. Now move towards the past. Was and were. Viola was baking cakes. Now this is also interesting. You can understand it better by applying another relevant context with it. Like Viola was baking cakes means she was in the process of baking cakes when the bell rang or when the visitors came. Viola was baking cakes when the visitors came. Now you get the concrete meanings. Past action. And you understood this past action by applying another context with it. Viola was baking cakes. Question might be in your mind. When she was baking cakes? Well, of course, when you came. She was baking cakes. When you came, where was she? Oh, she was in the kitchen. She was baking cakes. So, 2 contexts, of course, relevant contexts, you know, make Meanings, of course, clear. Simply, you want to use its negative construction, use not, or bring the was out. Waila was baking cakes, Waila wasn't baking cakes, was Waila baking cakes. Now, go down to will be, which is a future continuous, technically speaking. And functionally speaking, this is sort of assumption, actually. Now, first, let me give you the sentence. Waila will be baking cakes. Now, technically, I've explained that this is, future continuous, but, and functionally, I said that this is sort of assumption. Look, if you ask me, Imran, what's your present action? I mean, this is, let's say this is 6:30. And Imran, what's your present action? I would say, well, I'm teaching, I'm speaking, I'm talking, I'm communicating. Fine. And you can ask me what Waila is doing. Now, so look, Waila is not present in this room. But of course, she must be present somewhere in some room, She is present somewhere in some room, in her room. And I know her very well, okay? I know what she normally, every day, what she does around 6:30. I know. This is well-study hour. Now, ask me, Imran, what's your action? I'll say, I'm teaching. Now, ask me, what's Waila's action? I'll say, she'll be studying. Now, ask me one more question. How do you know she'll be studying? Can you see her? No, of course I can see her because she's not present in this room. Where is she? Of course she's in her room. Then how do you know she's studying? Well, look, every day, she studies around the same hours. Every day, like, 6 to 8, she studies. Now, this is just an assumption. Why? Because I can't see her. So this is just an assumption. Based on what? Based on my daily observation and my daily knowledge. Maybe she's not studying, she's watching TV, Cartoon Network. But assumptions are the same way. Assumptions may be correct or incorrect, right or wrong, but of course based on your previous knowledge. So will be conveys sort of the same meanings. The difference now between is teaching and will be teaching is you can see with your own eyes. Will be teaching, of course, you can see because, of course, it's future construction. But more, it is sort of assumption based on your previous 1 month, your teacher's schedule. 6 o'clock he starts, it's 6:30. So you can say, well, my teacher will be teaching. Why? He always 6 o'clock starts, it's not 6:30. In class, will be teaching, of course. Sort of assumption. How to make it negative? Very simple thing. Add not. Will not be, or bring will out. Will he be? Will he be baking cakes tomorrow? Will he be baking cakes tomorrow? Another functional meanings are, of course, we use, someone's routine, someone's scheduled routine, for future, for example. Like, will you be coming tomorrow? Like, I'm asking someone's schedule tomorrow, someone's tomorrow's plan, for example. I'm saying, will you come tomorrow? That's also possible. Will you come tomorrow? Or will you be coming tomorrow? Will you be coming tomorrow? Sort of, little less formal way of asking, will you be coming tomorrow? More of personal, I would say. So this is how this future continuous. But whatever it is, action is not complete. It's in the process of completion. Let's go down to another 3 very interesting, constructions where actions are, of course, not complete in the process of completion. And these are a little tricky also. The ones I'm going to talk about. For example, Waila has been baking cakes since morning. The use of since and for. Always scares everybody, you and me both. So, Waila has been baking cakes since morning. Now, this has been is very, very interesting construction. Again, bring in your mind 3 circles. Past, present, and future. When I say Waila Waila has been, Waila has been baking cakes since morning. It means she started her work in the kitchen in the morning, she is still busy. So past circle, she is still busy. Present circle, and you don't know when she'll finish her work. So it means she'll work a little more time in kitchen, baking cakes. So it means action will even move to future also. When I say you and me, you and I have been working since morning. So it means when I say you and me have been working since morning, it means what? It means this, that, morning we started, still we are working, we'll work a little more. Please keep in mind, dear students, when comes has been and have been, it means all the three circles, past, present, and future, they come in action. Action starts in the past, comes to present, and you don't know when it will finish, will of course go to future. You have been studying since morning, past, present, and future. And since comes when the time is definite, and for comes, when time is not definite. Time is known since, if it's not, for. For example, Sunday, is since, and 2-3 days will be for. Jan will be since, months will be for. 1920 will be since, and years will be for. 1 or 2 years will be for. Some specific. So it's specific and not specific since and for thing. Same way, use not to make negative meanings. Bring has out to convey, interrogative meanings. Hasn't been working. Has he been working? This is how we'll be, making its interrogative and negative constructions. And comes again, had thing, she had been, Waila had been baking cakes for 2 hours. Now, this is again the same thing. See, I'm talking about present, past, present, and future. When comes had, the same 3 circles will go in past. What? The past of past, the present of past, the future of past. How we'll understand? By applying another context. So, negative will be had not, and, future, interrogative will be bring had out. And the last one, will have been, baking cakes. Waila will have been. Now, just see it. Will have been. As I said, past of past, present of past, future of past, exactly the same way. Past of future, present of future, future of future. What does it mean? For example, you've been studying abroad, for some time, and now you are coming back home. You are sitting in, plane, and a person sitting next to you, you are talking about that, it's been now 2 or 3 years, haven't seen your mother, father, and today, see, you are coming back to see them, you see, and you are talking about the love of your mom and all, and you are saying, see, what you want to actually tell him is that your mother will have been working in kitchen since morning. Now, excuse me, you are traveling, you are here, okay, and let's say it's again 2 o'clock, okay, by your watch, and you'll reach your home, let's say 6, or 2 and 6. 6, of course, makes the sentence future. And you are saying she will have been working in kitchen since morning. Now, what don't you think when I say since and for shows past, present, and future, 3 circles, your tense is future, so it means she started working, the past of her future, she started working morning, okay, and this is now not morning actually, this is 2 o'clock, all right, and the same 3 circles of future you're talking about, she will have been working since morning in kitchen, making things for me, okay? Now, this sort of construction shows what? Again, don't you think this is sort of an assumption? You can't see her, you know? She's not in front of you. She's not there present, you know? Or you are not there present in the kitchen, where you could see, like, you know, she's been working since morning. So she will have been working, you know, since morning. So this is sort of an assumption, actually, you're making about your mother. Maybe she not, maybe she yes. So this is how, you know, you describe incomplete actions, you know, which are in the process of completion. To recapitulate fast for you, our tenses are, of course, two types. 6A, 6B, A, which show complete actions, B, which show incomplete actions. The negative making, interrogative making is same. Put not or bring, you know, your auxiliary verb or modal out of the sentence, and interrogative will be there. Completed action, bakes, baked, will bake, has baked, had baked, will have baked. And incomplete actions or actions in the process of completion is baking, was baking, will be baking, has been baking, had been baking, will have been baking. Now, these are your 12 tenses. They describe habits, routines, they describe present actions, they describe past actions, they describe future actions, they describe actions which start in the past and end in present, or they describe, you know, actions which started in the past of past and ending in the present of past, and actions starting in the past of future, ending in the future of future. So this is how, you know, all these 12, you know, tenses we use to add two things, of course, past, present, and future, plus the completion of action to our 5 basic clause patterns. As I told you before, clauses are 5. They are kernels only. We say kernel of a sentence means subject and predicate of a sentence. Today, we have covered, you know, types of, you know, tenses, the definitions, the, you know, structures, what different types of verbs we use, and how we make the negatives and interrogatives. This was all about active, you know, structures. Now let's move towards passive structures. I've already explained you at the start of this lecture that when we say active and passive, active means agent of the sentence is active. Agent, of course, is the subject of your sentence. And passive means, you know, agent is not active. He's passive. When agent is passive, it means then action, you know, enjoys the stress, and that becomes, you know, passive construction. Very simply speaking, if importance you want to give to actor, active sentences you construct. If importance you want to, you know, give to action, for example, then passive constructions, you know, you will make. How passive? Of course, actor then will sleep. Simple thing. Why we use passives? Well, principally speaking, go for active most of the time. Avoid passives. Why? Actor has to be very much there in your sentence. And of course, when actor is there, of course, his action automatically is there. Passives, you know, at times becomes our need. For example, when actor is simply not important. For example, your room and the paint work going on. Usually we say the room is being painted. We do not say who is painting the room. Yes, you'll definitely say if you or your daddy or your mummy or me or my daughter, you know, we paint the room, then of course it will become a news, of course. Then active sentence will go, of course, that Imran is painting his room, or Aroma is, painting her room, or Hassan is painting, Hassan's dad is painting. So here, though it should go passive, but, what happens? We are making or giving, preference to active constructions. Why? Because, here, importance of actor. Why? Because it's something really unusual thing people are doing. In routine, room is being painted. Passive construction. No need to tell who is the actor. Well, you hired somebody, he came to your place and he painted. So importance goes to action only, not name of that person, not actually who is he. But if you do yourself, then of course we'll say prefer active. Why? Because it's something really interesting to tell that, your daddy is painting your room. So this is how we switch over from active to passives, and of course vice versa. And at times, it in case of some sensitive situations, where it's not good actually to talk about actor. Why? Action, activity, or condition is something negative, something not good actually, something indecent, not that dignified actually. So we hide actor. We don't make actor on. Why? Because it's sort of like blamish thing. I mean, for example, if I say you left the tap open, don't you think it's sort of a blame? The sound is like some as if blaming. You left the tap open, whereas it should be this way: the tap was left open last night. Now, which one you think is better? Of course, if you say the tap was left open last night, this is how you can also convey your message. I mean, if the person who did it is sitting in front of you, of course he'll take ears that yes, you are talking about me. Why to pinpoint for negative situations actors? We also use passive, constructions in this case. Let's now quickly go back to, our passive constructions. I'll try to cover half of these constructions today and half, in my next lecture. Let's talk about same Aroma's, situation. Aroma her action was complete. Waila's action was in the process of completion. Let's go back to Aroma again. And I'll not give you full sentences, rather, I'll just apply passive, constructions onto the verbs actually. The first verb was bakes. Present, indefinite tense, bakes. So this structure, I mean, when the verb form is in present form, bakes, if you want to change this verb into passive situation, you will apply auxiliary is, am, are. Like the sentence is, Aroma bakes cakes. Cakes is a plural, so you'll use the sentence this way: cakes are baked by Aroma. Now, what actually we did? What actually we do in when we move from active to passive? Very simple. Subject we change into object. Subject goes into object, and the object goes at the place of subject. Subject becomes object, object becomes subject. Like in the sentence, Aroma bakes cakes, Aroma is a subject, cake is something which is object, right? So you change these. Cakes become subject, Aroma becomes, object as agent. So cakes are baked. Cakes are baked. Stress is on, importance is to action. Who? Now then you can say by Aroma. And in passive, we always use past form of the verb. And then if we want to show agent, we apply by and then the agent's name. Aroma bakes cakes. Cakes become subject. Cakes, cakes plural. So plural auxiliary are, cakes are. Use third, or past participle form of the verb, baked. And if you want to show who, then by aroma. Cakes are baked by aroma. That is the formula, we use to change active structures into passive. In my next class, I'll start from the same point. Why I, mentioned this passive constructions right after active, so that, by my next lecture, you should be able, to go through these through your notes, so that, when you come next time in my class, you could, in a better position to understand our passive, structures. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and with lots of more learning, we'll meet, again in the next class. Till then, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.